You're listening to the JR Sport Brief on CBS Sports Radio.
It's the JR Sport Brief Show right here on CBS Sports Radio. On the line, we are chatting it up with someone who's not only an actor, he's a comedian, he is a producer, he is a huge sports fan. It's my main man, Michael Rapaport. Mike, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, JR. Good to see you. Good to be talking to you. Thanks for having me, my man.
No, absolutely. I know in the midst of everything that's going on here in 2020, it doesn't matter if it's sports and how it ties into COVID and social injustice issues. When you take a snapshot of what we've seen so far this year in the sports world, are you happy that we have sports? What are your thoughts there in a general sense? How have you dealt with it?
I mean, I'm so happy and grateful that we have sports and that we were able to have the bubble and Major League Baseball and NHL hockey and NFL because, you know, there's so much going on, obviously, and to have that escape and to have that fun, you know, it's fun. Whether you're winning or losing, at the end of the day, it's fun. It's really, it's been above and beyond for me. I mean, I really appreciate it probably more than ever because at one point we were like, well, when are we going to get sports again? So I think the games themselves have been great in all the sports. Obviously, I'm a basketball, football guy first. I've watched some baseball. I'm excited about the World Series. Even the UFC fights that they've had overseas and in Vegas. I mean, I appreciate it all, and we do deserve, you know, a break from ourselves, a break from our lives, a break from our quarantine, and it's been great. 2020, as far as the sports coming together, has been so much better than nothing.
Most definitely. We know the Los Angeles Lakers just won their title, and it's going to be a short, compacted, I guess you can call it, off season. We know things are going to run to the draft and free agency, but a lot of talk, even a week, 2 weeks after them winning the title, has been about LeBron James and the Lakers just winning in the bubble. Is it too difficult? Is it not difficult enough? What are your thought processes when it comes to teams that are winning titles here in 2020?
You can't take anything away from them. You know, I think the Laker haters and the LeBron haters, and I raise my hand for being one of those. You know, you look for ways, but if they didn't win, you know, it would be totally valid. They were the most focused. They were the best team. They were the most consistent team, and they won. Whether you like it or not, they won. You can't take anything away from them. You knew LeBron wasn't going to come down there to play games, and the rest of the guys on that team followed suit, and they won. It was a great. The whole bubble process was great. The games were great from the beginning, and I wasn't surprised that they were great from the beginning because they had nothing but basketball to do. The playoffs were great. You know, you had some great games. There's always blowouts. You know, I love when this year they're like, oh, it's because they're in a bubble. There's always blowouts in the playoffs. That's just basketball. You know, I wish that game 6 would have been a more competitive, but Miami they put forth a gallant effort, and there's no asterisks in baseball. There's no asterisks in NHL. These guys are professionals, and when they're out there competing against other people, you know, it is what it is. And whether we miss the fans, which of course we do, or don't, the games were excellent.
Michael Rapaport is here with us, CBS Sports Radio, mega fan, producer, actor, comedian. When you talk about the Lakers, we know this has been a wild year, even outside of the pandemic and everything else. You know, I had to go on the radio earlier this year, back in February. It's one of those things that you don't want to do. And I had to, you know, tell my audience here in Atlanta about the passing of Kobe Bryant. Just with your time spent growing up in New York and all the time you spent in LA, when you think about Kobe Bryant, what thoughts come to your mind as a person, as a basketball player, competitor, businessman?
Man, you know, when I look at the whole spectrum of it, you know, I think in the beginning, you know, it's Kobe doubters, Kobe lovers, Kobe haters. You know, there were so many different, you know, there was a little peasy afro Kobe, there was bald-headed Kobe. But the thing about him, you know, he competed, he played hard all the time, he loved basketball. And obviously the transition that he made, we see other athletes, they can't put down their fighting stance. The transition that he made as soon as he retired, he truly gave everything to the game and there was nothing left. and to see the way he transitioned to, wanting to be a filmmaker and, obviously being a great dad and being out there and being so supportive of the WNBA and just he really was a prince and obviously was devastating for everybody. He was special. And then when you look back at the old interviews, which you take for granted in real time, he was some sort of like, philosopher about life and sports and competition and greatness and, being in the dream and not just reaching the dreams. And he's very special person, and obviously it was just a tragedy for everybody, all the families impacted, and that's the one thing that I'm very happy about is that the Los Angeles Laker fans and specifically the people in his family and the other victims of that crash, they have that little. It's not going to fix anything, but they have that little championship moment of happiness, which I'm sure meant a lot to his family and to everybody that suffered from the losses.
Yeah, that was most definitely a small piece of victory to see the Lakers win the title after everything the organization and city has had to deal with. And over the past several years, Los Angeles, it seems that it's a growing sports city. You talk about LA, it's not necessarily known as a sports town once you get outside of the Lakers. The Dodgers haven't won since '88. You now have the Rams. You got another team in the Chargers. What are your overall thoughts in how sports is kind of bubbling right now in LA?
I mean, obviously LeBron is king. The World Series is good for the Dodgers in LA. The Clippers, as much of a disappointment, they're still going to be in the mix next year. The Rams were just in the Super Bowl. You got the Chargers. Listen, you can't complain if you're a Los Angeles sports fan. I'm a New York sports fan, a Knicks fan, a Giants fan. I love the Jets too, Yankees, Mets. So these people in Los Angeles have nothing to complain about because we're suffering. We are suffering in New York, and we've been suffering, especially in the basketball side, for years. And it's just disgusting that it continues to go on every single year, and there's no hope. We don't even know the draft date of the NBA draft. They haven't announced that, right, yet, JR?
No, we're
Right,
still waiting.
right. But whatever that day is going to happen, whenever that draft is going to happen, it's going to be just miserable for the Knicks. It's just the
Yeah.
way it happens. So it's like I'm kind of glad they haven't announced that date yet because I know it's not going to be a great day for New York Knicks
It
basketball
should
fans.
be. I think there is a tentative. I don't know if it's a solid. I think it might be November 18th, but we have to wait and see. We're chatting it up with Michael Rapaport. You just heard the man. He is a suffering New York sports fan. You actually did an amazing documentary a few years ago when the Garden was Eden. And we're still waiting a few years later. The Nets have a Kyrie Irving and also a Kevin Durant. You mentioned the New York Jets, which are this is not hyperbole. They may legitimately end up being the worst NFL team ever. What are your thoughts, I guess, first of all, on those Jets? They're active right now and they're extremely ugly.
See, the interview's going so good, JR, and then you got to throw that at me. Listen, they stink, man. They stink. The Giants got their first win. How many wins did New York football have this season? One?
Combined 1-11,
1 and
1-12,
11.
1-11.
It's the greatest city on earth, and I don't care what anybody says. We deserve better. As a Giants fan, witnessing the 1980 the 80s Giants with Lawrence Taylor, the greatest football player ever, and then of course the 2 Super Bowl wins versus Patriots. We buried them twice, not once, 2 times. I can't complain too much. There's the ebbs and flows, but collectively this year, it's just terrible watching these Jets and being taunted online and teased online about New York sports. And then of course the Yankees got bumped. And then, like I said, the big hole in New York sports is the Knicks because it is in fact the city game. Basketball is in fact the city's game, and we just have nothing to offer. And you never would have thought that the Brooklyn Nets would have been doper than the New York Knicks, but they are. Brooklyn Nets are going to be in contention for a title next year with those guys. Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert. They love playing there. It's sexier. You live in Brooklyn. You practice in Brooklyn. You play in Brooklyn. One of the biggest problems with New York Knicks basketball is that they live in the suburbs. If you're a 24-year-old guy, a Donovan Mitchell, or what's my guy's name on Phoenix?
Oh, Dev Booker, yeah.
Dev Booker, with the freckles, he loves the women. He doesn't want to be up there with the soccer moms. No disrespect to the soccer moms.
You White Plains, not white. No,
he wants to be in the city. If you play for the Brooklyn Nets, you get the New York City experience, and nobody wants to live an hour and 40 minutes away from the arena. And it's not dope. Brooklyn's got a dope situation. You see Kyrie Irving riding his bike around town. That's fly. That's a New York athlete. That's a New York star. You're a part of the community, and Brooklyn is on the rise. So it's not good for New York sports fans.
Not at all. So there's a couple of approaches, Mike, that the New York Knicks can take. They can look to build through the draft, which never seems to work. You got players like Porzingis who come in, and regardless of his injury history, he wants out because of the organization. You look at aging stars. This is something that the Knicks have done for years. And now it's a matter of, do we bring in Chris Paul? Do we attempt for a Westbrook? How do you think the New York Knicks should actually build from what they have, and probably only a Barrett and then also a Mitchell?
I mean, if you get Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook, both of them who I like, these are Band-Aids. Chris Paul might have had his best season last year. He's a great, great leader, and he proved it once again last year. Russell, I'm always going to love him, but this is not the answer. He'll get some excitement in the Garden because he plays so hard, but inevitably it's going to be a fall right on our faces. So once again, we're forced to this rebuild, and we've been doing it for 20-something years. So, this is what we're going to have to do. And, these guys coming out of the draft, we're not getting LaMelo Ball, who I think is going to be a good player. I'm not that familiar with the draft. There's no transcendent player in this draft. So what are we going to be talking about in May of 2021? What are we going to be talking about? This same crap. If we're even playing basketball in May of 21, but at the end of the season next year, we're going to be talking this same crap. We deserve better, and we've dug ourselves into such a hole. And these guys don't want to come to New York for a variety of reasons. So I don't know, man. I don't know what's going to happen. If I had the answer, JR, listen, I'd be sitting on a big stack of money as high as Madison Square Garden. I don't have that answer, my friend. What do you think? You're smart. You know your stuff.
Hey, I think there's a few more years of suffering here for New York Knicks fans. There is no magic button. Trying to put this Band-Aid on is like trying to treat a gunshot wound and just giving somebody a Band-Aid and a lollipop. Mike, I think, I think the New York Knicks, they have taken advantage of the market. They've taken advantage of playing in New York City. The fans are diehard. I know we may not have this issue right now, but that place gets filled up with tourists. It fills up.
I don't know why.
Corporate
they need to stop
sponsors.
showing up. They need to stop showing up to the games. Well, there's no Broadway now, but go to see Cats. Go to see Hamilton. Take your friends out to dinner. They need to stop showing up. But I think it's beyond that. I think that Leon Rose and Worldwide West and Tom Thibodeau, obviously they're not there to to just collect checks. They want to win, but it's like, what do we talk? I mean, you look at the teams that competed this year: Denver, the Lakers, obviously, Miami, Milwaukee, the Clippers. Like even Dev Booker and those guys, and Donovan Mitchell. These are Orlando looks better than the Knicks. Even the 76ers, like they have guys. In order to compete, you need guys. So we could change coaches and change this and remodel the Garden. We need basketball players to win the games. Thibodeau, I love Thibodeau as a coach. We need players on that court to win the games. I'm sick and tired of squeaking at 8th place and 9th place and we'll get the 8th spot. There's no pride in that, the 8th spot. This is the New York Knicks. It's frustrating.
Michael Rapaport is hanging out here with us on CBS Sports Radio. I want to switch gears. Let's actually take some time to talk about somebody who's a winner. And we see he's still doing it at 43 years old. It's Tom Brady. He left Bill Belichick. He left the Patriots for a milder climate in Tampa Bay. And it looks like things finally might be clicking. They beat the bricks off of the Green Bay Packers recently. What are your thoughts on Tom Brady? Do you think he's going to see another ring? Does that add to his legacy? Did he make the right move in moving?
Well, I think he made the right move. And I ain't no Tom Brady apologist because, like I said, I'm a New York Giants fan and we buried him twice, 2 times. But I will say for me, I do enjoy being able to root for him. I think he did make the right decision. Whether they win a Super Bowl or not, it was time for a change. I think that when you go into a new system with a new coach and a new stadium and a new players and a whole new thing, I mean, he's only known one thing. There's going to be mistakes. There was no normal preseason and all that stuff. I'm enjoying seeing them good, and if Mike Evans continues to stay healthy and that offense continues to stay healthy and the defense clicks and they don't make these weird mistakes that they were making, I mean, they're going to be very, very tough. And I've always liked Bruce Arians, so I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying being able to enjoy Tom Brady a little bit more. It could change on a dime because I have deep-seated feelings about Tom Brady, but right now it's very positive.
He's 43 years old, Mike. It's one hit. I know he has the special diet and he takes the other food and the exercise. Could you imagine getting abused and knocked around by guys who are 300 pounds when you're 43 years old?
Crazy. He's sick, man. You could say what you want about him and LeBron. These guys they're sick, man. And one thing that whether you hate Brady, hate LeBron, a lot of these players, you see them get their paychecks, you see them get their contracts, and they're like their brain goes somewhere else. These guys have all the money. Tom Brady doesn't need to be doing this. LeBron James doesn't need to be doing this. He doesn't need to be re-upping for next year. They're different kinds of people. And what drives them is similar to what drove Kobe Bryant. It wasn't just about, I'm getting my contract, I'm good. Because a lot of these players in all the sports, it's like, I got my money, I'm good. And it's like, you're cheating yourself, man. You only get one ride being young. It's not like you're a musician where you could, fill up Radio City Music Hall when you're, 78 like James Brown. You don't get to do that in sports. It's a short period. And I'm so surprised with all the ESPN 30 for 30s and the specials, and you see people talk and all that stuff. It's like people still take it for granted. I mean, you're only young once, and sports is a young man's game. And when you see players in all the sports just kind of like, I got paid, I'm good. It's like, you're whack. You're not good. You're whack. Like you're cheating yourself. You're cheating every single thing that got you there. So that's why I can't take anything away from either one of them.
You can't. Michael Rapaport is here with us, comedian, actor, producer on CBS Sports Radio. You talk about money. We unfortunately had to see Dak Prescott. This guy was sitting on a contract, was just franchise tag, making north of $30 million, declined a long-term deal, broke his ankle, and you see what the Dallas Cowboys have fallen to. They look disgusting. The defense is terrible. The Dallas Cowboys, it's crazy, but it's great marketing. Jerry Jones is an amazing marketer. Dallas, the Cowboys, it's not a sports franchise on earth. $5.5 billion. It's not a soccer club. It's not the Yankees. It's the Dallas Cowboys. What do you think about Jerry Jones being in charge? So some of the decisions that he's made recently and over the years, it's like he's going to go to the grave with every decision with these boys.
That's on him. One thing I love about Jerry Jones is that he's going to be the one suffering. So he makes the decisions, and I have no problem seeing him suffer. Obviously, everybody who is brokenhearted seeing Dak go down. You never want to see, the number one player or the guy on the back of the bench to have an injury in any kind of sport. I'm a Giants fan, so I have no problem, enjoying Dallas Cowboys misery. And, Jerry Jones, he's done a lot of great things, but he wants to, make all the decisions. I've never seen him catch a pass. I've never seen him kick a field goal. I've never seen him take a snap. I've never seen him pull as a guard. So obviously he knows his stuff, but it's a team, and I think it takes a team to make decisions, even behind, even in the front office. So I have no problem with them being miserable. Zeke Elliott is on my fantasy football team. He was disgusting last night, I wonder, would he fumble the ball if it was a buffet ticket? If it was like he fumbles a football, but if he had a ticket to the buffet, would he fumble that? Because I don't know what's happening with him. He's another one. He's another one. It's like it's a short period, man. Enjoy it while you can, especially running backs. So I have no problem with them suffering, but I do need Zeke to step things up. The Red Rocket, bye bye. I think he'll do better. I mean, he was gross on Monday night, but I think he'll do better though.
Yeah, I think the whole entire Cowboys squad is kind of gross. To kind of start to wrap things up here, you think about baseball. It's been tough. Okay, we got the Dodgers playing out here right now against the Rays, and I looked at the 2 months of a season, and every time I hear this guy was the MVP, or I say it's Cy Young here, and this season, I'm like, it was 2 months. To me, it comes across as a sham. It's like it was a general tournament to get you to the World Series, and boom, like here we are. What are your thoughts on just what baseball is and looks like? It seems also baseball has an issue. They can collect all of the TV money, but the audience isn't getting younger. You're going to hit an inflection point at one point in time. What are your thoughts on baseball this year and where it's going?
The awards this year, obviously people are going to question them in baseball. They questioned some of the awards in basketball. They were giving the MVP of the bubble and all this stuff. And, these are all sponsored things. Listen, baseball out of the big three sports is my least favorite, but I was just happy to have them out there. They do need to do things to make it sexier. But somehow, some way, baseball, they're able to pay these guys ridiculous amounts of money. Obviously, this year is an exclamation point for these awards and all this stuff. But again, it's truly better than nothing, man. At least we got it. There's asterisks. This season, this whole year, anything they have to do, whether you play tiddlywinks or flag football or whatever, everything's going to be in question. But at least we have it, and at least we have a break from the news, from our health and all that stuff. So we could pick it apart and all that stuff, but like at least we have it. And baseball fans, they're going to enjoy it. And the World Series, this is never going to be, I mean, it's insane watching football and baseball because the arenas are so big. NBA, they were able to cheat it, right? But it's crazy, and then when the ball goes when baseball's foul balls or even home runs are hit into the stands and you hear like that, dung, you never hear that before because, it's like empty, but they're still playing, they're still competing, and the Rays and the Dodgers are going to go all out to win this crazy World Series. I can't complain, man. We can't complain. We got enough things to complain about. Sports being up there is one thing. I just can't complain about it, and I complain about a lot, JR.
Is there anything sports-wise you would like to complain about here on CBS Sports Radio that we might have missed?
Well, you got me on the LeBron. You got me on the Knicks. You got me on New York football. I don't know what else I could. I mean, you could throw some at me. I mean, let me ask you this: we're L.A., California. What do you? I know it's hard to make because it's literally like this guy's like an Instagram draft pick. But what do you think? What do you know about LaMelo Ball, and who will be the player? Who will be the NBA Rookie of the Year, whatever formation we have a season in next year?
Oh, it's ridiculous. When you talk about LaMelo Ball, I think if you want to look on a bright side, he can fall back on the experience of his brothers.
Yeah.
And, his dad is not as bombastic. He's not as boisterous as he was.
Yeah.
They have gone through the process of launching their own big baller brand and getting sued and watching it fall and being traded. You have had the success of going to the NBA.
Yeah.
Both brothers. You've had one brother went to the Lakers. Come on.
Yeah.
Like it's a fairy tale. But he's now fallen on hard times. I mean, he went into the bubble and people are saying, "Oh, well, Lonzo, you are in New Orleans and you stink. You're awful right now." So I think the youngest son he has the benefit of the doubt of establishing his own identity. He's probably the most exciting guy in the draft. There's so many point guards. You even think about somebody like Greg Anthony's son. He has a bad year at UNC, and now people are like, oh, well, he'll get drafted somewhere down deep in the first round. So there are a lot of picks. I personally like James Wiseman. I think he is a big 7'2", didn't get a full chance to play at Memphis. He'll take some time. I think the bigger question is, you got a team like the Golden State Warriors. Are they going to take that new generation big? Or are they going to try to strike right now while everything is hot, while you got Curry and these guys in their prime? You're going to try to stretch it out a few years. So those are some of the biggest questions I have as we move into this NBA. I guess we already in the NBA offseason, and we got to wait till the games get started, I presume, in maybe January.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy, but it's fun, and hopefully January. I don't know what bubble, 2 bubbles, what they're going to be doing.
No bubble.
No bubble.
I don't think. I think we'd be hard pressed to see a bubble. You talk about people not showing up at Madison Square Garden. I don't know. You may not see 19,763. You may see a couple thousand folks, and we'll see what happens there.
I want the Golden State. I love Golden State, and they're the sleeping giant that I hope they come back and everybody stays healthy and they bury the Lakers. I love Steph and Clay. I mean, that feels like 7 years ago. It was only a year ago that champion. It was a little bit more than a year now, but that championship. So I can't wait for those guys to come back. I mean, they bring so much joy and excitement to the game. Those two. And Draymond, and like it literally because of everything we dealt with it, and then being so injured last year, it's going to be dope to see Golden State bring back because they have such joy when they play, and we need that in our sports right now.
They got something to prove, and let's face it, the Los Angeles Lakers, they're going to need a local foil that isn't the disaster of the Clippers. And so I think you think about California. Seeing some matchups between the Lakers, the Clippers, Golden State, all battling it out, I think that's pretty damn dope, Mike.
I do too, man. Well, I appreciate you having me on. Anytime, JR, you want me, just hit me, radio, whatever, Zoom. I'm always down to talk to you, man. I love your take on everything.
No doubt about it. We've been chatting it up with Michael Rapaport here. You're listening to CBS Sports Radio. It's the JR Sport Brief Show.